All right, let's bring in trial attorney and legal analyst Misty Marris for a further deep dive into this. Misty, great to see you. So I want to talk about how court started today. You know, Crumbley's attorney apologizing for statements she made during the trial on Friday. Is there any strategy behind this?
It was necessary, Nicole, because she made a comment when utilizing technology. She was trying to get exhibits up on the computer. And the comment that she said was something to the effect of, "Oh, I'm going to kill myself." Oh my gosh, in the context of just the tragedy that unfolded at that school and that the victims' families are in the courtroom. It was an inflammatory comment. And look, the jury is watching the attorneys just as much as they are watching the defendant, and they're watching the witnesses. So it was really important that the defense attorney got out there, put a record on the statement that she did not intend for that comment to come out as it did, that she was not sensitive to the families, and that that wasn't the context that she meant it in. And that's because she doesn't want her off-the-cuff comment to ultimately impugn the defendant. Basically, she doesn't want the jury holding her conduct against her client. So it was really necessary to put something on the record there, both to address it right in the moment and also in case there's an appeal after a conviction.
Yeah, definitely a painful statement. So speaking of that, what's the biggest hurdle right now for the defense? She's apologized for her comments. What's the biggest hurdle?
Right now, we're seeing the prosecution's case unfold, right? So we're seeing all of these text messages relating to, and a lot of focus on the day leading up to the shooting when Ethan Crumbley went into the school. And in those messages, there's some damaging stuff coming out, and it's in black and white. It is in text messages, and it relates to Jennifer Crumbley's actions or lack thereof with respect to Ethan and what the prosecution is couching calls for help, that he sees demons, that she's not responding quickly, basically that she's ignoring what could be seen as a risk. And so right now we're seeing the prosecution's case unfold. But Nicole, I have seen some nuggets of what I expect the defense to argue. First of all, a lot of focus on this horse farm and that Jennifer Crumbley spent a lot of time at the horse farm. Defense made sure to get on the record the horse farm has pretty bad service. So they're likely to make an argument that maybe these messages weren't contemporaneously being ignored, but that there was bad service and therefore a lag in response to Ethan. Another issue, we saw the school counselor take the stand and talk about the disturbing drawing that's at the center of this and other issues that were raised by teachers on that fateful day and around that fateful day. Well, the school counselor testified that he did not escalate concerns regarding Ethan to the next steps, which would have allowed for a search of his backpack. I expect the defense to really latch onto that and say there's all of these other causes. Jennifer Crumbley cannot be held responsible because there were intervening factors. So both sides, prosecution really focused on the failures and omissions, and the defense going to latch onto some of these nuggets that are coming out throughout the testimony.
You know, and Misty, we heard Kelly mention there the fact that Ethan Crumbley will not be testifying. Do you think that's going to make any difference?
Yeah, I'm not shocked that that's the outcome, because even though he pled guilty, he was sentenced to life without parole, and he was a minor when this happened. So his lawyers are definitely going to be filing an appeal. It has not been filed yet, but it will relate to whether or not life without parole was an appropriate sentence, which, you know, the judge found that it was, and I don't think a lot of people are going to argue that. But from a legal perspective, it's a basis for an appeal. So he would have had to get on the stand and plead the fifth to every question. And I'm sure his lawyers told him, and reports indicate, his lawyer said, you can't testify. Do I think it will really matter? I don't think so, because ultimately, that statement he made during sentencing will likely come into the courtroom because he's unavailable. He can't testify because he would plead the fifth. Now, that being said, that's not really the prosecution's argument. Prosecution has not said that Jennifer Crumbley knew what was going to happen. They say that there were warning signs and they were so obvious, and she just willfully disregarded that known danger and risk. So I don't think it's really going to matter either way.
You know, and obviously she's going to be found guilty, or she is going to be found not guilty. What type of precedent is this case likely to set in either of those instances?
If she's found guilty, I mean, this is really opening up a whole theory of legal liability whereby parents can be responsible for the acts of their children. Now, that being said, it's always going to be a very, very fact-specific analysis of whether or not that can be done in any specific case. And this is really the test case, Nicole, because there's so much out there about what happened before, the purchase of the gun, the knowledge of Ethan Crumbley's adeptness with using the gun that we saw at the gun range, these drawings, these text messages regarding his mental state. All of that is what they're going to look at in order to make an assessment of whether there was willful disregard to hold her responsible for the murders of these kids under this involuntary manslaughter theory. So it could really open up the prospects for these types of cases in mass shootings and other cases. Now, if she's found not guilty, still the legal theory exists, and more cases like this could be brought. The question is, in that fact-specific analysis, and something really important to focus on here, the jury's going to be asked to look at this before the shooting occurs, not hindsight. So it's not going to be 2020 look back. It's going to be before this occurs. So it's a really important case all around.
Yeah, so many eyes on this, including the eyes of her husband's attorney, since his trial will start after hers. All right, Misty Marris, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.